I still remember the exact moment I signed the lease for my first apartment. 23 years old, standing in that tiny one-bedroom unit, holding a pen that felt heavier than it should have. 4 years of working double shifts, skipping meals, saying no to every small pleasure just to save enough money to escape. And finally, I was free. For the first time in my entire life, I could breathe without feeling the weight of everyone else on my shoulders. But exactly 3 weeks after I moved out, my doorbell rang at 11 o'clock at night. And the decision I made that night turned my entire family against me. They called me heartless. They said I betrayed my own blood. But was I really wrong? Before we dive into what happened, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location into the comments below. And if you have ever had to make a painful choice to protect yourself, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you are going to want to hear the whole story before you judge me. Let me give you some background so you understand why I had to leave in the first place. My name is Unity, and I grew up in a household that looked normal from the outside, but was anything but normal on the inside. My mom, Denise, is 46 years old now. She has 4 children with 3 different men. I am the oldest, and my father left when I was 2 years old. I have no memories of him, just a name on a birth certificate and a lifetime of questions that will never be answered. Then there is my sister Harper, who is 17. Her dad stuck around for maybe 3 years before he disappeared too. And finally, there are the twins Mason and Wyatt, who are 9 years old. Their father was the longest relationship my mom ever had, lasting almost 5 years before he walked out the door, just like the others. Growing up, I became the man of the house before I even understood what that meant. By the time I was 12 years old, I was waking up early to make breakfast for my siblings, packing their lunches, walking them to the bus stop, and making sure they did their homework at night. My mom was always somewhere else. Sometimes she was at work, but most of the time, she was chasing after whatever new man had caught her attention. She would disappear for days, leaving me in charge of everything. I missed out on so much during those years. While other kids were playing sports after school or hanging out with friends, I was at home, changing diapers and heating up canned soup for dinner. I never went to a single school dance. I never had a girlfriend in high school because I did not have time to date. My entire adolescence was consumed by responsibilities that should never have been mine. My mom had this phrase she loved to use whenever I complained. She would look at me with those tired eyes and say, "You are the oldest, Unity. You have to be responsible." It was like a spell she cast over me, making me feel guilty for wanting anything for myself. The financial situation at home was always unstable. My mom worked part-time at a nail salon, but she spent money faster than she earned it. New clothes, new makeup, dinners out with her friends while we ate cereal for dinner. The child support checks that came from my younger siblings somehow never seemed to benefit them. I started working at 16 bussing tables at a restaurant after school and on weekends. At first, I was saving for college, but slowly, my mom started asking for help with the bills. Just this once, she would say, but once turned into twice, and twice turned into every single paycheck. By the time I was 22, I realized that if I did not make a change, I would be trapped forever. I would spend my entire life paying for a household that was not mine, raising children I did not choose to have, sacrificing every dream I ever had for a mother who never seemed to appreciate any of it. So I started planning my escape. I stopped telling my mom exactly how much I earned. I opened a separate bank account and started depositing money there every week. I lived like a ghost, spending nothing on myself, eating the cheapest food I could find, wearing the same clothes until they fell apart. Every dollar had a purpose, and that purpose was freedom. It took me a full year to save enough for first and last month rent, plus a security deposit on a modest one-bedroom apartment about 30 minutes from my mom's house. When I finally told her I was moving out, she reacted exactly how I expected. She screamed at me for an hour straight. She called me selfish, ungrateful, a traitor to the family. She said I was abandoning my siblings, that I would regret this decision for the rest of my life. But I held firm. I had given enough. It was time to live for myself. Those first 3 weeks in my new apartment were the most peaceful of my entire life. I slept through the night without being woken up by crying children or my mom stumbling in at 3 in the morning. I cooked meals for one and ate them in silence, savoring every bite. I signed up for evening classes at the community college, something I had dreamed about for years, but never had time for. I still called my siblings every week to check on them. I even sent money for their school supplies. I was not trying to abandon them completely. I just needed to build my own life first. But my mom saw my departure as the ultimate betrayal, and she was about to show me exactly how far she was willing to go to punish me for leaving. It was a Thursday night, and I had just gotten home from a late shift at work. I was exhausted, my feet aching, my mind already drifting toward my bed. The clock on my microwave showed 11:07 p.m. when I heard the doorbell ring. The sound startled me. I was not expecting anyone. I did not really know anyone in this neighborhood yet. I walked to the door slowly, a little nervous, and looked through the peephole. What I saw made my heart stop. Harper was standing there, her face streaked with tears, holding the hands of Mason and Wyatt. All three of them had backpacks. The twins looked like they were about to collapse from exhaustion. I threw the door open. "What are you doing here? What happened? Where is Mom?" Harper could barely speak through her sobs. She just started pouring out words in fragments. "Mom drove us here. She said you wanted to live alone so bad, now you can take care of us. She pushed us out of the car and drove away. She would not listen to us. She just left." I pulled all three of them inside, my mind racing. Mason and Wyatt were shivering even though it was not cold. They were scared, confused, hungry. Harper collapsed onto my small couch and buried her face in her hands. I went into autopilot mode, the same mode I had been in for most of my childhood. I made sandwiches for the twins and found some juice boxes I had bought on a whim. I wrapped blankets around them and turned on the television to distract them while I tried to figure out what was happening. Then I called my mom. The phone rang and went to voicemail. I called again. Same thing. I sent a text message. "Mom, you need to come back and get the kids. This is not okay." I watched the message show as delivered, then as read. But no response came. For the next hour, I called her over and over. I left voicemails that started calm and became increasingly desperate. "Please, Mom, I cannot take care of them. I have work tomorrow. They have school. This is not fair to them or to me. Please just come get them." Nothing. Around midnight, I started calling other family members. I tried my Aunt Linda first. She is my mom's younger sister and has always been the one people go to when there is drama in the family. When I explained what happened, her response shocked me. "Unity," she said with a sigh. "This is between you and your mother. You left her high and dry, and now you are surprised she is upset. I am not getting in the middle of this. Figure it out yourself." She hung up before I could even respond. I tried my grandmother next, but she did not answer. I tried my Uncle Frank, and he did not pick up either. I was completely alone with three children who should have been in their own beds, in their own home, getting ready for school the next day. Harper looked at me with red eyes. "What are we going to do?" I looked around my tiny apartment. One bedroom, one small bathroom, a kitchen barely big enough for one person. I thought about my job, my classes, my carefully planned budget that had no room for feeding and housing 3 additional people. I thought about Mason and Wyatt, who needed to be at their elementary school in the morning, a school that was 45 minutes away from where I now lived. I thought about Harper, who was in the middle of her junior year of high school and could not just miss class. And then I thought about my mom, who had read my messages and chosen not to respond, who had deliberately dumped her children on my doorstep as some kind of punishment or power play, who had put her own selfish agenda above the well-being of her kids. At 1:15 in the morning, after exhausting every other option, I picked up my phone and dialed a number I never thought I would call about my own mother. I called the police. The operator asked me to describe the situation. I told her that 3 minor children had been abandoned at my residence by their mother, that I had been unable to contact the mother for over 2 hours, and that I did not have the means or legal authority to care for them. My voice was steady, but inside I was falling apart. 2 officers arrived about 20 minutes later. They were kind and professional. They took statements from me and from Harper, who was old enough to explain what had happened. They tried calling my mom from their own phone, and to my surprise, she actually answered. I could hear her voice through the phone, that familiar dismissive tone. She told the officers she was just teaching me a lesson. She said I had abandoned the family, so now I could see what it felt like to be responsible for everyone. She actually laughed at one point like this was all some kind of joke. The officers were not amused. They informed her that abandoning minor children was a serious offense and that she needed to return to pick them up within 1 hour or face potential criminal charges. The laughter stopped after that. My mom showed up at my apartment around 3:30 in the morning. She did not knock. She pounded on the door like she was trying to break it down. When I opened it, she pushed past me and started gathering the kids' things without even looking at me. But then she turned, and the look in her eyes was pure venom. "You called the police on me," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "On your own mother. After everything I have done for you. After I raised you and fed you and kept a roof over your head. You call the cops on me like I am some kind of criminal." I tried to stay calm. "Mom, you left 3 kids on my doorstep in the middle of the night. What was I supposed to do?" She stepped closer to me, close enough that I could smell the perfume she always wore. "You were supposed to step up like you always do. You were supposed to remember that family takes care of family. But I guess I raised a traitor instead of a son." The officers intervened at that point, stepping between us and reminding my mom that she was already on thin ice. They issued her a formal warning about child abandonment and told her that any future incidents would result in immediate action from Child Protective Services. She glared at them, but said nothing. Then she gathered the kids and left without another word to me. I stood in my doorway and watched them drive away. Harper looked back at me through the rear window, her face a mask of confusion and sadness. The twins were already half asleep in the back seat, and just like that, they were gone. I did not sleep at all that night. By 7 in the morning, my phone was exploding with notifications. Aunt Linda had called 4 times. My grandmother had left 2 voicemails. My Uncle Frank had sent a string of angry text messages. And when I finally gathered the courage to look at social media, I understood why. My mom had posted about the incident on Facebook, but her version of events was very different from the truth. In her telling, I was the villain who had cruelly rejected my own siblings, who had called the police on my innocent mother just because she asked me to help out for one night. She wrote about how she had sacrificed everything to raise me, how she had worked her fingers to the bone to give me a good life, and how I had repaid her by humiliating her in front of law enforcement. The comments were brutal. Dozens of people I had known my whole life were calling me ungrateful, heartless, disgusting. Some of my mom friends who had never even met me were leaving paragraphs about what a terrible person I was. A few people even found my own profile and started sending me direct messages filled with insults and threats. I felt like I was drowning. Everything I had worked so hard for, the new apartment, the fresh start, the chance to finally be my own person, all of it felt tainted now. I could not even enjoy my freedom because I was too busy being painted as a monster by my own family. My Aunt Linda eventually got through to me on the phone. Her voice was cold and clipped. "Do you have any idea what you have done?" she asked. "The whole family is talking about this. Your grandmother is devastated. Your mother had to explain to the police why she dropped her kids off at their brother's place. You have embarrassed everyone." I tried to explain my side of the story, but she cut me off. "I do not want to hear excuses, Unity. You do not call the police on family. Ever. I do not care what happened. You handle things internally. That is how we do things." I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask her where that internal handling was when I was 12 years old and raising my siblings alone. I wanted to know why nobody in this family ever held my mother accountable for anything. But I knew it would not matter. In their eyes, I was the one who had crossed the line. 3 days after the incident, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was from Harper, and she was whispering like she was afraid of being overheard. "Unity," she said, "I need to tell you something. What Mom did the other night, it was not the first time." My blood went cold. What do you mean? Harper told me about an incident from the previous year when I was still living at home but had taken a weekend trip for a work training. While I was gone, my mom had disappeared for 4 days without any warning. She had left Harper in charge of the twins with no money, no food in the house, and no way to contact her. Harper had to knock on the neighbors' doors and ask for food. She had to lie to the school about why the boys were wearing the same clothes 3 days in a row. And when my mom finally came back, she acted like nothing had happened. "Why did you not tell me?" I asked, my voice cracking. Because Mom said she would kick me out if I told anyone. And I was scared. I did not know what else to do. There was more. Harper told me the real reason my mom had abandoned them at my apartment that night. It was not about teaching me a lesson or punishing me for moving out. It was because she had met a man online, someone who lived in another city, and she wanted to spend the weekend with him. She did not want to bring 3 kids along, so she decided to dump them on me instead. I sat in silence for a long time after that call. All those years I had spent sacrificing for my family, all those nights I had stayed up, taking care of children who were not mine, all those dreams I had given up to be the responsible one. And this was who my mother really was. Not a struggling single mom doing her best, but a selfish person who saw her children as burdens to be passed off whenever they became inconvenient. That night, I sat alone in my dark apartment and let myself feel everything I had been suppressing for years. The anger, the sadness, the grief for the childhood I never had. I cried for the little boy who just wanted his mom to see him, to appreciate him, to love him without conditions. And I realized that I had spent my whole life trying to earn something that was never available in the first place. For a few days, after learning the truth from Harper, I did nothing. I went to work, came home, ate dinner alone, and stared at the ceiling until I fell asleep. I was numb, processing everything, trying to figure out what to do next. But eventually, the numbness faded and something else took its place. Not anger exactly, but clarity. A clear-eyed understanding that staying silent was not protecting anyone. It was just allowing the cycle to continue. So I decided to tell my side of the story. I wrote a long post on Facebook, not to attack my mother, but to share the truth. I explained what had actually happened that night, how my mom had abandoned my siblings on my doorstep, without warning, how I had tried for hours to contact her, how calling the police was a last resort after every other option had failed. I did not use inflammatory language or call her names. I just laid out the facts and let people draw their own conclusions. I included screenshots of the text messages I had sent her that night, the ones she had read but never answered. I explained that I had not rejected my siblings. I had simply been put in an impossible position by an adult who should have known better. The response surprised me. Yes, there were still people who attacked me in the comments, loyal friends of my mother who refused to see anything wrong with her behavior. But there were others who started to speak up too. People who had witnessed my mom neglect over the years. Neighbors who remembered seeing me walk my siblings to school when I was barely a teenager myself. Former coworkers of my mom who had stories of their own to share. Slowly, the narrative began to shift. Not everyone believed me, but enough people did that the overwhelming tide of condemnation started to recede. My Aunt Linda sent me a private message a few days later. It was not an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement that maybe things were more complicated than she had initially thought. More importantly, I took action beyond social media. I contacted Child Protective Services and reported what Harper had told me about being left alone for days at a time. I provided them with dates, details, and Harper contact information so they could follow up. It was one of the hardest phone calls I have ever made, but I knew it was the right thing to do. A social worker visited my mom's house the following week. They conducted an assessment and found several concerns about the living environment and the level of supervision the children were receiving. My mom was not arrested or anything dramatic like that, but she was required to attend parenting classes and was placed under monitoring by the agency. The changes were not instant, but they were real. Harper reached out to our grandmother and asked if she could move in with her. To my surprise, my grandmother agreed. She had been angry at me at first, but after hearing more details about what had been happening in my mom's house, her perspective shifted. Harper moved out a month later and started her senior year of high school from a stable, supportive home for the first time in her life. The twins stayed with my mom, but with the oversight from Child Protective Services, things improved. She could not disappear for days anymore. She could not spend the grocery money on herself while the kids went hungry. There was accountability now, which was something that had never existed before. As for me, I started going to therapy. I found a counselor who specialized in family trauma and codependency, and for the first time in my life, I talked to someone about everything I had been carrying. It was not easy. There were sessions where I cried the entire time, and sessions where I felt angry at everyone, including myself. But slowly, I started to understand that I was not responsible for my mother's choices. I never had been. The guilt I had carried for so long was not mine to bear. I also joined a support group for adults who grew up in dysfunctional families. Hearing other people's stories, people who had been through similar situations, helped me feel less alone. I learned that setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary. I learned that you can love someone and still protect yourself from them. I learned that walking away from toxicity is not abandonment. It is survival. My relationship with my mom is different now. We are not estranged, but we are not close either. I talk to her maybe once a month, short conversations that stay on the surface. She has never apologized for what she did that night or for any of the years before it. I do not think she ever will. But I have made peace with that. My healing does not depend on her acknowledgement. It depends on me. 1 year after that terrible night, my life looks completely different. I finished my classes at the community college and got promoted at work. I moved into a bigger apartment, one with 2 bedrooms, so my siblings have a place to stay when they visit. Harper graduated from high school last spring. She got accepted to a community college near my grandmother's house, and she is studying to become a nurse. When she got her acceptance letter, I was the first person she called. Hearing the joy in her voice, knowing that she had a real future ahead of her, was worth everything I went through. Mason and Wyatt are doing better too. They visit me 1 weekend a month, and we do normal things like go to movies, or play video games, or just hang out. They are kids now in a way they were not allowed to be before. They laugh more. They worry less. They know that no matter what happens, their big brother is just a phone call away. Looking back on everything, I do not regret calling the police that night. It was the hardest decision I have ever made, but it was also the catalyst for change that our family desperately needed. Sometimes you have to break something before you can fix it. Sometimes the person who sounds the alarm gets blamed for the fire they did not start. But that does not mean you should stay silent. If there is one thing I have learned from all of this, it is that love and loyalty are not the same as accepting mistreatment. You can love your family and still refuse to be their doormat. You can honor where you came from and still choose to build something different for yourself. Setting boundaries does not make you a bad person. It makes you a survivor. So was I the villain for calling the police on my mom that night? Maybe in her eyes, I always will be. But I know the truth. I was a 23-year-old kid who had already given up too much of his life for people who never appreciated it. I was someone who was put in an impossible situation and made the best choice I could with the options I had. And I was a brother who loved his siblings enough to make sure they would never be abandoned in the dark again. Here's my question for you. If you were standing in my shoes that night, 3 scared kids at your door, a mother who refused to answer her phone, no one else willing to help, what would you have done? Was I wrong to call for help, or was that the only responsible choice? I really want to know what you think. Leave your answer in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, if you have ever had to make a painful decision to protect yourself or someone you love, please hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories about real people facing impossible situations. Thank you so much for listening to my story today. Whatever you are going through in your own life, I hope you know that you deserve peace. You deserve safety. You deserve to be more than just the person who holds everything together for everyone else. Take care of yourself. You are worth it.